talking about the Georgia loss where his team played like crap and they got stomped in Athens. And this quote in particular has been making its rounds, where he acknowledges fan frustration and then tells them what they can do with it.
We got to watch it. We got to see it. You got to own it. You got to solve it, and then we got to go do it. The other side of that, the other side, if you want to do that, it's blame, complain, deny, or make excuses, and we're not going to do that. It is what it is, and fans have that right. I give it to them. I just encourage them to donate more, because that's what those teams are doing. I could promise you in Georgia, they bought some pretty good players. You're allowed to these days, and we could use some help. That's what they look like. You know what I mean? When you have 85 of them. So I encourage anybody that's disgruntled to pony up some more.
So, and there's been two sides of that. One side is, oh yeah, he's absolutely right, and you know what, he is. And the other side is taking that as essentially blaming their lack of funds on the loss to Georgia. So, if I remember correctly, they have 12 wins in program history over Georgia. Mark Stoops has been in Kentucky since before NIL became a thing, and he's never beaten Georgia. Now, let's not kid ourselves. We all know what the deal is. We know Georgia was building its roster in that way since before NIL. That's always been a part of college football. The dollar figures are larger, but that's always been a part of college football. So in some cases, he's right. We say the same thing about the programs here. Look, if you want Mississippi State to be competitive in football, if you want Ole Miss to be competitive in football, the best way to do it is to be well-funded in the NIL game. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. And so, coaches help, they elevate. Mississippi State is not a well enough coached football team right now. That is an absolute fact. More money would help alleviate those issues. I mean, that's just the reality of college football today. But man, the timing of that statement, if I were a Kentucky fan, would make me so angry. It would make me so angry. Could you imagine if Lane Kiffin, after the Alabama game, got up behind the podium and said, we lost because we don't have enough money. So if you're mad, be mad. Give us more money, and then we won't lose that game. Kentucky played like crap. Like absolute crap. And it's not like that's a roster that's void of talent. They have a really experienced quarterback. They stole a running back from an SEC East team. Don't forget where Kentucky's running back came from. You think that Davis just... I would just love to go play in Lexington. I mean, how do you think that happened? How do you think Barian Brown ended up in Kentucky? So, anyway, but your team played poorly. It would be different if you played well and you played really well and it's just like, we're just a few athletes away.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, if they lost 35-34 and it was just, let's just say Georgia just had a receiver that was just eating their cornerbacks alive. And he goes and he's like, look, we're so close. And you guys can help us get there by helping us get the kind of athletes who can help stop that player. You're sort of throwing your corners under the bus there, but whatever. Do you take it more seriously at that point? Does it come across better than, you just lost 51-13, guy. Unless you're going to get 3 or 4 recruiting classes like Georgia has, you're not getting there.
Yep. Absolutely. The way the team played absolutely changes things. Take to loop in a local example, Ole Miss 2020. Remember how well they played against Alabama, just got beat that night?
Yeah.
If Kiffin would have stood behind the podium and said, you guys see, what can be done, just we need help, is what in that moment he would have said or could have said and been justified, right? But after this most recent Alabama game, he didn't do that, to his credit. But if he'd have stood there and talked about money, nobody would have, or should have bought it. Nobody would have bought it. Your team didn't play well. They weren't coached well enough. Kentucky wasn't coached well enough on Saturday night. Not only did they not have the players that Georgia has, but they were out-schemed and out-coached and out-prepared. Imagine if Zach Arnett after the LSU game. Look, LSU has more talent than Mississippi State. They do. And that is a perpetual issue, basically. Although State has had success recently against LSU. But still, Generally speaking, LSU has a greater ability to acquire talent than Mississippi State. They have a talent-rich state that they have on their own, and they've got more money and resources. It's just how that works. But if Zach Arnett would have stood behind that podium after the LSU game and not blamed himself and said, we need more money. That's why we lost. We lost because of money. You guys don't give us enough. Donate more. How would that have been received? Terribly.
Poorly? Yeah, I believe so.
So, it's and especially during the season, when this is when your people are spending the most on your program, I don't know. It strikes me as tone deaf. Kiffin got away with it at the end of last year because Auburn was a thing. Fans were just willing to give up money because don't go to Auburn. Ole Miss fans hate Auburn. Don't go to Auburn. Don't do it. Here's money. But during the season, when you are getting in your car from Jackson, from Biloxi, or Birmingham, or Memphis, or whatever, and you're driving your family of four that you already spent, $90 per ticket through the school on the website, so you're spending $400 on tickets, and then you got to drive there, and then you got to park, and then you have to eat, and all the stuff that comes with it. And then the team plays poorly, and then your coach after the game says, you got to give me more, you don't do enough. Ooh, the timing of that is awful. Ben says, just a thought, but even though it has been part of before, NIL and NIL progressed the issue. Do we think seeing NIL eventually hurting college football in general? I mean, this is year 3. And what has been hurt? I mean, maybe things change eventually. Maybe it does. But my question is, this is the 3rd season of it. What has been hurt? Has anything changed? Ratings are through the roof. Yeah. Attendance is really good across the country, generally speaking. Not for the bad games, but attendance is good enough. Ratings are really good. There's at least the illusion of more parity. It may end up being Ohio State and Texas and Georgia and Southern Cal in the playoff or whoever, but there's a feeling amongst fans that we are halfway through the season and we have no idea who the best team in the country is. Oregon and Washington are about to play each other this weekend. Winner's going to make the playoff. At least it feels like it. So it may, but after 2.5 years, nothing has materially changed for me at all.
Yeah. The game is, it's just like everything else off the field. Once the games start, nobody cares. Nobody cares once they see the team come out and put their uniforms on. Nobody cares how the players got there. Nobody cares what was said in the offseason. They just care about watching the games. And that's for me, that's all the time, as you know, as my constant eye rolling when we talk about this stuff in the summer would alert you to. But yeah, for the average fan who is, I don't know, NIL and the transfer portal and all this realignment. Oh, it's game day. You get the memory of a goldfish on those things.